Hi, this is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Wednesday, February 22nd, and this will serve as our chart lesson for today. It was really a very weak trading range type day. We did have somewhat of a trend line coming down through here. We were coming off these swings, but price has spent most of the morning in this 4-point trading range right in here, right between the 1356 and kind of 1359, 1360 area. Yeah, you actually might would have had this up here or maybe even right across here. You can see that. But I usually use the last where I get the most touches on something, where you get the most closes. And you really get the most touches right across that 1359, 75 area or so there. But probably at the open, I probably would have had it right in this area, maybe right in here, because that was kind of the resistance from the yesterday afternoon, and you see that carried right over into today and held again today too. Now we did have this little two-legged move right here, but that's just a two-legged correction between this leg and these couple of legs. But let me show you this right here. You can see this is your first leg down right there. Then you had this little correction in here, and you come over here and look, and then there's the second leg, almost a perfect two-leg move. If you went to a lot bigger chart, you could see a much clearer leg down, two-leg correction, and then another leg down or whatever. But that's basically all that is. And if you look at this, my guess is you'll probably see a leg down here. Then you got your two-leg, first leg up, two legs back, second leg up, and then you got your next leg down over here. And this one didn't quite make it as low, but that's close enough to be a two-legged move right there pretty much. And we may end up coming on down here before it's over. But anyway, we're always looking for two legs, and if you do that, you're gonna find these moves more often by making sure you're watching for the two-legged moves. But again, this was more of a trading range with prices spending almost the majority of the day in a 3 or 4 point range. And when you see something that tight, there's just not much going on. It's some pretty difficult trading. And, we had this one failed break lower, or this one break lower that went a little lower, and then it reversed and came right back up inside the trading range again. And the lows might have moved. You could say the lows maybe moved a little bit lower at that point, but this is pretty much holding more of the price action at the early part of the morning. So that's the reason I have it right there. And that's basically, if you look, that was the lows from yesterday afternoon, and this was the high, the resistance from yesterday afternoon. And if you had those lines in those same places, and that's what you need to do until they're proven otherwise, you see they both came into play today and pretty much showed you exactly where to expect reversals and so forth. But there wasn't a lot of volume really today either. The volume's a little low. Um, Here we're kind of in between contracts. It's about time to roll over to the June contract, so people are starting to roll over and so forth. I usually don't roll over the first few days. I wait until the volume changes. So it could be you're trading you could be trading the other contract now, but there's not much difference in them. Um, they pretty much show the same price action. So not much difference if you were trading one or the other. But let's talk about the trades. I actually missed one right here that I should have probably circled. This was a good setup right here. But this is right around the open, right in this area, right in here. And you can see we had the highs at that point. You might have even had your line right across there because those were your last closes before the regular open. And you can see we tried to break a little higher, failed. And we tried to go higher once, pulled back, tried to go higher twice. So even though that looks like congestion, which it is on a smaller freight, which it basically is congestion, it's still two attempts to break above these previous highs that failed. So going short right there is a second entry short at the high of a trading range, right off a double, triple top maybe. So that's a great place to enter. And then you got a second chance to enter right here when it tested it again and closed way back down here. So you're going short right there was another good trade with the idea that prices are probably going to at least come down here and test these lows and maybe the ones from yesterday. And that's exactly what happened. And when this reversed right here with this little trap, you notice this bar formed first, prices broke lower, then turned higher. So you could have gone long right there, and you definitely should have gone long right here on the second entry long. And this is where people get confused a lot of times. Uh, when you're coming off a new low like this in the opposite direction, the first break higher is considered a first move up off the count coming from upward. So here's your first move, your pullback, and your second move. And some people don't catch that part about second entries, and hopefully I'm not confusing you, because really the trend was down, so we're looking mostly to enter. But anytime you find a strong support area and prices hold, well, that's considered, if it's made a new low, that's your first entry, pull back, and then your second entry. Because remember, what we're looking for with second entrance really is just two legs. And so you know you're going to get another leg up. And we actually got a perfect measured move here that tried to reverse and then failed right here. And you actually could have gone along here on that trap, but it wasn't leaving you a lot of room before getting to this high. But by this time, your line should have been up here. And so there was probably room to scalp out. So if you caught this failed second entry short here that reversed and went higher on a trap, it was okay to go long right there as well. And you see that trade would have worked as well. Then we got back up here, and this hit was holding again, and we broke higher, and it fell and turned down. So if you went short here, that's okay too. This is not, usually it's better to wait for the second entry, which came down here, but by that time, there was a lot of overlapping bars, a few dojis, so I didn't really like that setup. There was a better second entry, breakout pullback short right here, but again, I just didn't like it. 3 overlapping bars, a doji. It wasn't a good setup. And you can see prices didn't go much further, even though a scalp would have worked, and then we were heading back up again. This range was just by this time very obvious, and it's a very tight range. So if you could get in here, it was okay if you took it. I didn't mark it because it's not a great setup. And but here we go again. When it came back up here and failed again up here at this same area, well, we know this is proven resistance now, so this is another good place to enter. And again, you had to enter below these dojis, but if you're going to enter below, this is the one time where a doji is okay, when you're coming off lows like this or coming off highs like this that have proven to be strong support and resistance, then it's not such a bad setup. And that's the one time where it's okay to take dojis. Just make sure you put your stop above the bar a tick or two, or use a 2-point stop or whatever, and either way you would have been safe here. Even though it hesitated just a minute, it broke on down fairly quickly. And the good thing was here is that your runners very likely survived, and hopefully you rode them on down, at least down to the lows here, and you had a chance to go lower. And there was a breakout pullback short right here with this trap. Prices broke higher first, then turned down, and then went lower. So that was a nice little breakout pullback short. But I didn't mark it either because it's not, there were really high odds that we'd come back up in here. And you can see prices didn't get too far before we did, and we came right back up in here again. And so that's why I didn't mark that short there. But if you took that, it's still a good breakout pullback short. Nothing wrong with that trade, because there was a good chance we were going to get a measured leg like this one right over here on this side. But I really thought it was starting right here on this failed break higher. But it didn't. We stayed in the trading range, and the leg didn't form until here. And sometimes those legs will form, sometimes they won't. And so you just have to be prepared to reverse on something like this. When we went into all this congestion right here, and prices broke lower and immediately failed, and then tried to break out and go lower again and failed, going long right there was a good trade. And you actually could have gone long right here on this failed breakout. But it hesitated a minute, and if you didn't go long right above this bar, you definitely should have gone long right here, because that's 2 tries right there to go lower off this double bottom that failed, and you see how nice that move up was. And that's what happens. Anytime the market tries something twice and fails, there's a good chance it's going to succeed in going the other way and a lot further. And by the time we got up in here, there was a good short right in here, but there were a lot of overlapping bars. I was expecting a retest because because this was a trading range, I wasn't convinced this was a good trend line, but you can see it did turn out to be. And so I didn't take any of these trades right in here. I was pretty much done for the day by this time. I was watching it right here, and I considered a trade, but never took one. And then by the time we got over here, it's definitely too late in the day and too choppy, even though there's some setups over in here. And you can see that all this had moved much lower by this point, and you really probably would have ended the afternoon with your support right in this area. And so there were some nice bounces off there, especially that double bottom, but look how late in the day it is, and it's just very risky trading in that time of day. I don't like it, so I didn't mark any of these trades. And but again, you could have gone short on these, and if you'd gone short, you definitely didn't want to go short right here, even though this is the first break of the trend line, because this was a fairly strong move, and I bet you a lot of you probably didn't even have this trend line on here, and I wasn't even convinced myself that it was valid. But when you draw it off two and the next time it holds right there, you got to really consider that that's a valid trend line. And you can see it did, because prices continued to follow it on down here. And so I do believe that was a valid trend line, even though more people were probably looking at this trading range than they were. This is a trend. This is a valid trend line. So it did end up following the trend line rules. We broke higher. We came back for a retest. We've got a couple of legs down. We could continue to come on down and make a new low, but this is good enough to be considered a higher high retest. So now we may get a leg from here up that's equal to this leg right here. So that's what I would be concerned about and be thinking personally. Let's just measure this and see, and I bet you it's probably right about back up to the former highs there. So that's probably about right. You might be able to, usually you get it, measure that right there, and you move it over here and you see that's just basically testing these other highs. So there's a very strong possibility that that's where we're headed, right back up into this area to test this resistance again and test this former highs in here. And it could stall here, it could stall here, or it could stall here, and it would still be good enough to be two legs up, and then we may sell off again. Now we're getting way on out there, and that's too far. We're just guessing when you do that, and you don't want to be doing that a whole lot because if you start trying to guess where the market's going, that's when you make mistakes. So we'll just follow the price action, but with, as much as I've watched the prices, and with I think there's a good chance that's where we're headed. And whether or not that's where we go, it's another story. We'll just have to watch the price action up through here, but that's my guess. We're coming back to test this area up in here, and we'll see. It's going to be during the overnight more than likely, and anything can happen in the overnight. It could gap up here real fast, and sometime when the trading picks up later. But that was really all there was for today. And again, your lows were right along here. And so there was enough movement to make money today. But my guess is you probably got chopped up a lot if you didn't catch this trading range. But this is a fairly obvious. If you're having trouble seeing that range right there, then you're not drawing your lines, or you're not looking for them hard enough. I mean, it's obvious there's no trend in here. The only trend you possibly had was either here, or maybe even earlier you might have even been thinking down across here like this, but then you could see you should have been expecting a reversal, and you might have even drawn it like this, because that even looks fairly valid right there. And if you draw it like that, we had the break, a retest. I'd call that a successful retest with couple legs down, and then we had a couple leg extended reversal that lasted almost an hour, and we sold off. So again, you hear me say a lot, these trend lines don't have to be precise. Generally they're easy to find, but when you're having a hard time finding a trend line and you're not sure, just like we just looked at there, it could have been several different trend lines. That's a good clue that something's amiss, and we're probably not trending. Because generally when you're in a trend like right there, it's pretty easy to see that trend line up through there. Until we broke it right here, I mean, that's a pretty, you shouldn't have a whole lot of trouble finding that trend line. And you definitely see the bars were overlapping down here, but now we're starting to get movement until right in here we started to get overlap. So generally, if you can't find a trend, that's a good clue. And so even that trend's fairly easy to find down through there. I mean, there's no denying there's a short-term trend right down through there. And if you're having a hard time finding a trend, that's your clue. Hey, are we in a trading range? Well, maybe we're not trending. And that's really the case from this thing started at about 3 o'clock my time, 3:30, and we were ranging until maybe 10:30 my time today. And even then we broke lower and it failed, and we came right back and got right back inside the range again, and we started teetering on that area. And you can see that turned out to be support and resistance. They're trying to turn it into support or resistance to see which way the market's going to go. And right now we're on the underside, so there's a good chance it might hold as resistance and go lower, but I still think we're going to get back in here and come back and test this area up here. So, and it's looking that way at this point. But anyway, that's it for today. Hopefully you saw that. Hopefully you had some success today, or maybe you even looked at this and said, hey, we're stuck in a 3-point range for hours, 3 or 4 points. Is that worth risking any trades other than maybe taking some scalps off the highs and lows? Probably not. And, you know, I've got one trade in here. Even if you took that one out, your best trades were trying to look for trades off these highs and lows of this trading range. And then once you got these two swings, it held again. It didn't matter if you had that or not. Take that away, you still saw you had the range up here. So you got that trade either way. But when you can get more than one reason to take it, that makes it even stronger. So, and I'm always telling people, make sure you try to draw your trend lines. And there's one other thing that I was looking at that was a possibility, and it's probably valid, but sometimes, you know, the trend probably started right there 2 days ago. And if you see that, you can see that, and then you can copy this and you can drag it down, and you can see that we do kind of have a trading range right down through there. But when you start trying to trade that on a day trading, you can get caught up in the middle or at the highs for too long. So your more accurate trends for the day trading are going to be the ones you can get on the current day. And but I do believe that's a valid channel, and you can see every time we've come down here to the low, we've reversed. Even though it may not have reversed right off the line, it's still reversed in that area. And off the top side, it's even better. Every time we've come up here to the top side and tested that, we've reversed, and so far that's held. And will it reverse again this time? We'll have to see. But anyway, hopefully you can see that. And I hate to start, you know, sometimes I'm hesitant to show those kind of trends because then people start looking for trends from days away and they just get confused. Try to stick with, generally your best trends are off your first couple of swings of the overnight. And if you're having a hard time finding that, then there's a good chance that prices are ranging like they were today and there is no trend. So keep that in mind. I'm going to call it a day. We're up to about 18 minutes. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you tomorrow.